For context, my childhood was basically a horror movie. My mom had Otis move in when I was 8, and everything changed overnight. She was never Mother of the Year before that, but with Otis, she became someone else entirely. He was controlling AF and had serious anger issues, and she just let him. No, she didn't just let him. She joined in. I was expected to be basically invisible. If I made any noise while Otis was relaxing, drinking, I'd get screamed at by both of them. If I didn't finish cleaning something exactly how Otis wanted, my mom would call me worthless, stupid, a mistake. She'd tell me how much better her life would have been if she never had me, how I ruined everything for her. The physical stuff started small, a slap here, grabbing my arm there. By the time I was 10, Otis was regularly beating me with his belt, while my mom just watched TV in the next room like nothing was happening. When I'd cry afterward, she'd tell me to stop being dramatic and that I deserved it for making Otis upset. One time when I was 12, I spilled a glass of juice on the carpet. Otis completely lost it. He threw me against the wall so hard I couldn't breathe. I still remember looking at my mom, silently begging her to help me, and she just said, "Now you have 2 messes to clean up," and walked away. I spent that night locked in the bathroom, putting ice on my bruises. School was my only escape. Teachers would sometimes ask about bruises, but I was too scared to say anything. By 14, I started staying at friends' houses as much as possible. My friend Laura's mom would look at me with this sad knowing expression but never pushed me to talk about it. When I was 16, Otis broke my wrist. I told the ER doctor I fell off my bike. My mom stood right there nodding along. I'll never forget how she squeezed my shoulder in the car ride home, a warning to keep my mouth shut. That night, I heard them fighting about hospital bills for that ungrateful brat. I started planning my escape then. I got a job at a local diner, saved every penny in a bank account my mom didn't know about. On my 16th birthday, my mom actually seemed almost normal. Got me a cake, even hugged me. Later that night, she came into my room drunk, told me the only reason she didn't abort me was because she was too far along when she found out she was pregnant. Said keeping me was the biggest mistake of her life. When I graduated high school at 17, I was just waiting for the right moment. It came a few months later when they went on a bender that lasted days. I grabbed what I could carry and went to Barbara's place. She was a waitress at the diner who'd basically taken me under her wing. She let me crash on her couch while I found my own place. My mom called exactly once 2 days later, screaming that I stole money from her. I didn't. Then nothing for 5 years. Nothing. I blocked her number, moved apartments twice, completely started over. I met Larry 3 years ago. He's everything opposite of what I grew up with. Gentle, patient, kind. When I told him about my childhood, he just held me and promised nobody would ever hurt me like that again. We weren't planning on having a baby, but when I found out I was pregnant last year, it felt right somehow. Like a chance to break the cycle, to be the parent I never had. We're not married, but we're solid. His family has been amazing. His mom threw me the baby shower last weekend. I was opening gifts when I felt this weird shift in the room. Everyone got quiet. I looked up and there she was, my mother, standing in the doorway holding a wrapped gift. She looked older, thinner, but I'd know her anywhere. My hands went ice cold. I couldn't breathe. Nobody knew who she was except Larry, and I saw his face go from confused to furious as he realized. My mother-in-law looked concerned, asking if everything was okay. I couldn't speak. My mother took a step toward me, tears in her eyes, saying my name. Larry moved between us, asking her to leave. She ignored him, kept walking toward me, saying she'd been looking for me, that she needed to talk to me, that Otis was gone and she was different now. I told her to get out, that she had no right to be here, that she wasn't my mother anymore and would never be my baby's grandmother. She started crying, saying she was sorry, that she'd gotten sober, that she'd been in therapy, that she'd give anything to make it up to me. Part of me wanted to scream, to throw things, to tell everyone exactly what kind of monster she really was. But another part, a tiny broken part, wanted to believe her. Larry's mom was trying to usher other guests out, giving us privacy. My mother took another step closer, reaching her hand out toward my belly. I stepped back, knocking over a chair. She said she understood if I hated her, but begged me to let her try to make amends. Said she was dying. I froze. Dying? Was this some manipulation tactic? Before I could process, Hunter, Larry's brother, asked who the hell she was. I opened my mouth to answer when my mother suddenly collapsed to her knees right in front of me, grabbing my hand. I tried to pull away, but she held on tight, looking up at me with desperate eyes, saying, "First update." Okay, so I had to step away before even writing this because I was so keyed up. But honestly, I don't think I've ever needed Reddit more than right now. If you read my first post, you know the history. Years of hell at the hands of my mom and her boyfriend Otis, me getting out as fast as possible, 5 years of blessed nothing, and then she just strolls into my baby shower like she's got an invitation and a right to exist in my world. If you think that's where the weirdness ended, buckle up because I swear the universe was just getting started with me. So, picture it. My mother, who I haven't seen since I was 17, is kneeling on the floor of my mother-in-law's living room, clutching my hand in front of a bunch of people who have no idea who she is. She's crying and begging and saying she's dying, and all I can think is this actually happening? Like, how did she even find me? I changed my number, moved across town, scrubbed myself off every people finder site I could think of. But there she is, looking like a ghost that's somehow louder and more persistent than she ever was when I was a kid. And let me just say, the physical reality of it was so much worse than I imagined. I know people think, oh, you'll freeze up or just go numb in these moments, but for me it was the opposite. My skin went hot and prickly, my mouth felt like sand, and every part of me was just screaming, get off me, get out, why are you here, why now? I tried to yank my hand free, but she had this grip that was all desperation and guilt and whatever else she brought with her. Larry was right there, and I could see his eyes flicking between me and her. But he looked lost. Like, nobody tells you how to handle your pregnant girlfriend's estranged, abusive mother showing up at your family party. There's no playbook for that. My mother-in-law, bless her, was doing her best to clear the room. She's got this way of hurting people with polite urgency, just quietly telling everyone that I needed a minute and maybe they could grab some dessert in the kitchen. I'm honestly so grateful for her in that moment, because I could feel the eyes on me, the whispers starting. Hunter, Larry's brother, was still stuck in the middle of the room, trying to figure out if he needed to be a bouncer or just call the cops. My mother kept rambling, her words pouring out in this weird, broken-up way. She started saying she was sorry, that she had been sober for a year, that Otis was out of the picture, whatever that means, because she never actually said dead, just gone, and that she wanted to be part of my life again. She kept glancing at my stomach, and I could see this hunger in her eyes that made my skin crawl. I don't know if anyone here has ever had a parent look at them like they're an opportunity instead of a person, but that's what it felt like. Larry finally stepped in. He put his hand on her shoulder and told her she needed to leave, that she was upsetting me, and that this wasn't the time or place. But she just ignored him, pulling at my hand harder. I snapped at her to let go, probably louder than I meant to, but I just couldn't stand it anymore. She started sobbing, like full ugly crying, voice cracking, mucus, the whole deal. She was saying, please, please, just listen. I'm sick, I'm dying, I don't have anyone. I need you, over and over, like a broken record that's also somehow a guilt trip. At that point, I pulled my hand away with all the strength I had. She lost her balance and kind of toppled sideways, landing hard. Hunter took that as his cue and moved between us, blocking her from getting up again. He was asking, do you want me to call the police? Do you want her out? And honestly, I did. I wanted her gone so bad it hurt, but there was this tiny, horrible part of me that just wanted to hear what she had to say, out of some sick need to know if she actually cared or if this was just another performance. So I said, fine, she can talk, but only if she sits on the couch and doesn't touch me. I don't even know where that came from. It just spilled out. My mother, of course, latches onto this like it's a lifeline, scrambling up and perching on the edge of the couch like she's afraid someone's going to drag her away. Larry sits next to me, holding my hand so tight it's almost painful, but honestly, I needed that anchor. My mother starts talking about Otis, how she finally left him, how he's in jail for something unrelated, how she's been alone and working on herself. She says she got cancer, and that she's in treatment, and that it made her realize how much she regrets what happened. She's crying again, talking about God and forgiveness and how she just wants to meet her grandchild before it's too late. The whole time, her eyes keep darting to my belly like she's imagining the baby already in her arms. And here's the thing, I don't believe her. Not really. I mean, maybe she's sick, maybe she's not. But I know my mother. She knows how to twist a story, how to make herself the victim. She's always been good at that. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her she destroyed me, that I don't owe her anything, but I just sat there, silent, my jaw clenched so tight I thought my teeth might break. Larry's mom poked her head in at one point, asking if I needed anything, and I could see the tension in her face. She's always been kind to me, but even she looked like she was about to lose it. Hunter was pacing in the hallway, muttering about calling security or just tossing my mom out himself. Meanwhile, my phone kept buzzing on the table, texts from friends who'd left, asking if I was okay, if I needed them to come back. My mother must have sensed she was losing her audience because she turned up the drama. She started shouting, saying I was ungrateful, that she did her best, and that I never appreciated her sacrifices. She went on about how hard it was to be a single mom, how Otis made her life hell too, how I could never understand what she went through, and honestly, that's when I snapped. I stood up, hands shaking, and just let it rip. I told her, loud enough for the whole house to hear, that her best was letting a man beat me for years, that her sacrifices were just excuses for her cruelty, that maybe Otis was awful, but she was the one who let it happen, who joined in, who made me feel like a mistake every single day. I said she had no right to be here, no right to ask for my forgiveness, and definitely no right to my child. She tried to argue back, but Larry stood up and told her to leave. Hunter started dialing on his phone. My mother's face twisted into this horrible mix of rage and anguish, like she'd just realized she wasn't going to get what she wanted. She got up, yanked her purse from the couch, and started screaming about how I'd regret this, how I was just like her, how I'd never be happy. And then, because apparently we hadn't hit rock bottom yet, she tried to lunge past Larry toward me. He blocked her with his body, and she started hitting him with her purse, shrieking at the top of her lungs. Hunter grabbed her arm and tried to pull her back, but she dug her heels in and kept swinging, screaming that she wanted to see her grandchild, that I owed her that much. My mother-in-law came back in, saw the chaos, and immediately started shouting that she was calling the police. My mother froze for a second, then bolted for the door. Hunter locked the door, double-checking it like she might come back any second. Larry wrapped his arms around me, but I couldn't relax. I kept expecting her to start pounding on the windows or something. My mother-in-law started apologizing, saying she had no idea, asking if I needed anything, if I wanted to stay at their place for the night. I couldn't even answer. I just sat there, staring at the overturned chair, the scattered gifts, the ugly red mark on my wrist where my mother had grabbed me. Eventually, Larry and I packed up our stuff. I left most of my presents behind, just wanting to get out. The car ride home was brutal. Larry kept glancing at me, like he wanted to say something but didn't know how. I just stared out the window, replaying everything in my mind, wondering if I'd done the right thing, if there even was a right thing. When we got home, I checked my phone and saw a string of missed calls from unknown numbers. Voicemails too, but I couldn't bring myself to listen to them. I just blocked the numbers and put my phone on silent. For a while, we just sat on the couch, not talking, not moving. I tried to focus on the normal stuff. It was almost funny how quickly the drama of the day faded into the everyday mess of life. But then around 10 that night, there was a knock at the door. Not the buzzer, not the mail slot, just this slow, deliberate knock that made every hair on my arm stand up. Larry went to the peephole, then turned back to me with this look that said everything. It was her. Again. I told him not to open it, but of course she started yelling through the door. She said she just wanted to talk, that she was sorry for what happened, that she was leaving town soon and needed to see me one last time. Larry told her to go away, that we'd call the police if she didn't leave. She kept begging, her voice getting higher and more frantic, promising she'd never bother me again after tonight. At that point, I just lost it. I went to the door and shouted back that I didn't believe her, that I wanted her out of my life, that if she didn't leave right now, I really would call the cops. She started crying again, saying she had nowhere else to go, that she just wanted her family back. I could hear neighbors opening their doors, peeking out to see what was happening. One of them yelled for us to keep it down, and my mother started shouting back at them, telling them to mind their own business. Larry ended up calling the non-emergency line. The dispatcher said they'd send someone by to check things out. Meanwhile, my mother kept yelling, alternating between begging and threatening, saying she'd tell everyone what a terrible daughter I was, that I abandoned her when she needed me most, that I was heartless. I just stood there shaking, wishing I could vanish, wishing this had never happened. When the police finally showed up, my mother tried to spin her story, telling them I was her daughter, and she just wanted to say goodbye before she died. The officer looked at me, asked if I wanted her trespassed, and I said yes. He told her she needed to leave, that if she came back, she'd be arrested. She started sobbing again, but the officer didn't budge. She finally left, sobbing and cursing, and I watched her go down the hallway, her shoulders hunched, her head down. She looked so small, but I couldn't feel sorry for her, not after everything. We locked the door, double-checked the windows, and just sat there, not saying anything. I kept waiting for another knock, another call, another escalation, but for the rest of the night, it was quiet. I didn't sleep. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering what fresh hell tomorrow would bring. And of course, I was right to worry. Because the next morning, there was an envelope shoved under our door. My name, written in her shaky handwriting. Inside was a letter, pages and pages of apologies, accusations, stories. She wrote about Otis, about being alone, about being sick, about wanting one last chance to be a mom. She said she'd be at the park near our apartment the next day, waiting for me, hoping I'd come. So that's where I'm at now. Sitting on the edge of my bed, letter in hand, trying to decide if I should go. Part of me wants to burn the letter, block every number, and never look back. But another part of me needs answers, or maybe just closure. Either way, I know this isn't over. Not even close. If you made it this far, thanks for sticking with me. I know I'm a mess right now, but honestly, who wouldn't be? I'll update if anything happens at the park. But if you have advice on how to actually get rid of a parent who just will not stay gone, I'm all ears. This is my life now, I guess. Second update. Okay, so I'm back because, yeah, you all wanted an update, and honestly, I need to get this out more than I need sleep at this point. So, the morning after the chaos, I was staring at her letter, pages of apologies, stories, sick guilt trips, little doodles of hearts like I was supposed to forget everything that happened because she's sorry now. And there's that line. She'll be at the park near our apartment. She wants me to meet her. No threats this time, just this pathetic hope leaking off the paper. I didn't sleep. Larry barely slept either. We kept whispering back and forth about what to do, if I should go or just block her for good. He wanted to call the cops again. He was talking about restraining orders. But I just kept thinking, is it really that easy? Like, I'd seen her get physical, sure, but is she dangerous or just desperate? Do I want to open that legal can of worms? Or do I just want her to go away on her own? And NGL, I felt this weird, ugly curiosity about what she'd say face to face without an audience. By noon, I was so twitchy I couldn't sit still. I put on a baggy hoodie and sunglasses, grabbed my phone, and told Larry I'd be back in an hour. He didn't like it, but he didn't fight me. He just looked tired and worried and asked me to text him every 10 minutes. I promised, not that I actually planned to. So I walked the maybe 4 blocks to the park. It's not fancy, just a couple of benches, a sad little playground, some trees that are more stick than leaf this early in the season. It's the kind of place you'd never notice unless you're a local, but my mother somehow found it. She was sitting on the far bench, hunched over with a tote bag next to her, staring at the ground. I almost turned around and left right then, but something kept me moving. Call it morbid curiosity, call it unfinished business. Either way, I walked over. She looked up as I approached and immediately started crying, like actual tears, not the fake kind I remembered from when I was a kid, and she'd try to guilt me for not cleaning the kitchen right. Her face looked even thinner in daylight. She barely looked like the woman I remembered. Less hair, more lines, but the same eyes. She started talking before I could even sit down. She said she was sorry, again, and that she understood if I hated her. She said she'd been sick, that she was getting chemo, that Otis was gone for good. I asked what that meant, and she said he was in prison. She didn't know if he'd ever get out, but she didn't care. She said she was alone now, and that was her fault. She said she'd lost everything, her home, her health, her friends. She said she'd been going to meetings, getting sober, trying to be better. I didn't say much. I just watched her. I could feel my jaw clenching, my hands digging into my sleeves. But I didn't interrupt. Not yet. She said she wanted to know her grandchild, to make it right, to be part of my life. She said she'd give anything for a second chance. And honestly, I felt nothing. Just this dull ache, like someone poking a bruise. I wanted to yell at her, to ask why now, to demand she explain why I wasn't enough before, but I didn't. I just waited. She kept talking. And after a while, the apology started shifting. She started saying I'd always been difficult, that I never listened, that I always set Otis off, that I never appreciated what she did for me. She said it was hard for her, being a single mom, that nobody helped her, that I was so much work. She said maybe if I hadn't been so stubborn, things would have been different. That's when I snapped. I told her this is exactly why I left. I told her you always make it about you. I told her I was a kid. I just wanted you to protect me, not blame me. She started crying again, saying she knew she messed up, but that she was dying and didn't want to die alone. She reached for my hand and I jerked it away. She just sat there crying, shaking. There were people in the park, parents with their kids, a guy walking his dog, a couple of older women power walking and pretending not to stare. I realized how weird this must look. 2 grown women fighting on a bench, one sobbing, the other stone-faced. I said, I can't do this. She said she understood but begged me to take her back, to give her one last memory before she was gone. I wanted to walk away, but she pulled out this envelope and handed it to me. She said it was medical records, proof she was sick, proof she wasn't lying. I didn't want it, but she tucked it into my bag anyway. She said all she wanted was a photo of me pregnant, so she could remember she'd done something right. I told her no. She asked if she could at least hug me. I told her absolutely not. At that point, she lost it. She started yelling, calling me cruel, saying I was heartless, that I'd always been selfish. She stood up, waving her arms, crying harder. She said she was my mother, that I owed her this. I told her I didn't owe her a thing. I told her she lost that right years ago. I stood up too, and she tried to block my way, grabbing at my sleeve. I pulled back, saying to let go, that I'd call the cops if she didn't. She let go, but then started shouting for everyone in the park to hear, saying I was abandoning her, saying her daughter hated her, saying she was sick and alone and nobody cared. I just kept walking, not looking back. I could hear her sobbing behind me, but I didn't stop. I didn't owe her anything, not even a backward glance. When I got home, Larry was pacing in the living room, half on his phone, half looking out the window like he expected her to show up again. I tossed the envelope on the table and told him everything. He wanted to open it, but I just shrugged. Let her prove it, I said. He flipped through the papers, doctor's letters, some results, a couple of appointment reminders. It all looked legit, but we both knew that didn't mean I should let her back in my life. For the next few days, things got weird. I started getting messages from numbers I didn't recognize. Some were long apologies, some were angry rants. Her saying she deserved better, that I was ungrateful, that I was cold as ice. Once, a neighbor texted to say she saw a thin woman with a tote bag hanging around our building. I started double-checking the locks before bed. Larry said we should file for a restraining order. I agreed, but I kept putting it off. Part of me was just so tired, and part of me still felt petty, like I wanted to see if she'd actually give up on her own. A few nights later, we were eating dinner. Takeout, because who has the energy to cook when your entire life is a dumpster fire? When someone started buzzing our apartment. Over and over. Larry checked the camera. Yep, it was her, standing there, looking wild-eyed and desperate. He buzzed her off, but she wouldn't leave. She started yelling through the intercom, pleading, then cursing, then crying again. We ignored her, but she kept at it. Finally, one of the downstairs neighbors came up and started yelling at her to get lost, to stop causing a scene. She finally left, but the next day there was another letter at our door. This one was shorter, angrier. She said she'd never forgive me for this. She said she hoped my baby never treated me the way I treated her. She said I was heartless and that I'd regret it. She said she'd see me again, whether I wanted her to or not. At that point, Larry put his foot down. He said we needed to actually file for a restraining order. He said he'd go with me, that we should go together, first thing in the morning. I agreed, but I could see how stressed he was. He was snapping over little things, dropping his keys, tripping over the laundry basket, yelling at the phone when it wouldn't connect to the Wi-Fi. He's usually so chill, but this whole thing was making him jumpy. I felt bad, but also, what was I supposed to do? Pretend this wasn't happening? Just let my mom camp out on our doorstep? The next morning, we went to the courthouse. It was crowded and slow, and I felt super awkward explaining everything to the clerk. She asked if I had police reports. I said yes, from the night my mom showed up at our apartment. She handed me a stack of forms to fill out. It took forever. Larry kept rubbing my back, trying to be supportive, but I could tell he was as uncomfortable as I was. We turned in the forms and were told to wait for a hearing date. That night, I got a DM on Instagram from an account with no profile pic, just a string of numbers. It was her. She said she was sorry again, that she would leave me alone, that she was leaving town soon. But then, in the next message, she said she couldn't promise not to come back, that she just wanted to see her grandchild, that she hoped I'd forgive her someday. I blocked her. I blocked every number I didn't recognize. I blocked every account that looked even a little bit suspicious. I felt like I was playing whack-a-mole with my own life. But then things actually got worse. If you're still reading, sorry, but seriously, it gets dumber. About a week after the park incident, I was coming home from grocery shopping. I had both hands full of bags, keys in my teeth like an idiot, when I turned the corner and there she was, standing right in front of my building. She saw me, ran over, started begging me to talk to her just for a minute. I told her to leave or I'd call the cops. She started crying again, grabbed my arm, wouldn't let go. I yelled for her to let me go, and a neighbor came out and started yelling at her. She finally let go, but not before telling me she'd never give up, that I was her only family. I went straight upstairs, locked the door, sat on the floor shaking. I called Larry, told him what happened. He came home early, checked the hallway, kept looking out the window every few minutes like he expected her to be camped outside. I called the police non-emergency line, reported the incident, gave them her name, description, everything. The dispatcher said they'd make a note, but unless she broke in or actually threatened me, there wasn't much they could do. Things got weird with the neighbors after that. People started avoiding me in the hallway. One neighbor, Freya, asked if I was okay, but then said she hoped I could work things out with my mom because family's important. I wanted to scream. Like, do people actually think I want this mess? Do they think I'm just being dramatic for fun? But I just nodded, said thanks, went inside. Our apartment felt smaller every day. The laundry pile kept growing. The fridge started smelling weird because I forgot about a bag of spinach in the back. Larry and I started snapping at each other over dumb things, whose turn it was to take out the trash, why I didn't answer my phone, why he left his socks in the bathroom again. It was like all the tension from my mom was leaking into everything else. The hearing date finally came. I got up early, tried to look normal, but my hands kept shaking. The judge listened, asked questions, looked at the police report. My mom showed up, sat across the room, didn't say a word to me. When it was her turn, she told the judge she just wanted contact, that she was dying, that she was sorry. The judge asked if she'd been told to stay away before. She admitted she had. The judge granted a temporary restraining order, said she was to stay away from me, my apartment, and anywhere I worked or spent time. After, my mom tried to talk to me in the hallway. She said she forgave me, that she'd pray for me, that she hoped I'd change my mind before it was too late. I just walked away. It's been a few days now. I still check the peephole before opening the door. I feel like I'm waiting for the next thing to go wrong, but at least now there's some kind of legal barrier between us. And the kicker? I got another letter today. This one was short. She said she was in the hospital, that she didn't have much time left, and that she wanted me to come before it was too late. She left the hospital name and her room number. I don't know if I'll go. Part of me thinks she's still playing games, but part of me feels like if I don't go, I'll always wonder what she wanted to say. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. If you're still reading, thanks for sticking around. I wish I had a neat ending for you, but real life just keeps getting messier. Last update. All right, Reddit. If you're still following this absolute circus, here's the final update. For now, anyway. This is the one where everything finally boiled over, and I'm honestly still in disbelief at how far things went. Buckle up, because if you thought the baby shower was wild, or that the park showdown or courthouse scene was peak drama, you absolutely have not seen anything yet. So, last time, I left off with that letter from my mother. She's in a hospital, claims she's dying, wants me to come before it's too late. She left a room number and the hospital's info. I sat on that decision for 2 days, literally staring at the envelope every time I walked past the kitchen table. Larry kept asking if I was okay, if I wanted him to come with me, if maybe it was all just some final guilt trip. I kept saying I needed time to think. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to feel sorry or angry or just completely done. It was all just exhausting. But I couldn't shake the feeling that if I didn't go, she'd find some way to make me regret it anyway. So 2 days later, I woke up to yet another text from an unknown number. It just said, "Please, I'm scared, come soon." I showed Larry. He kind of rolled his eyes, but he also said, "If you want closure, let's just get it over with." I guess that's what finally pushed me. I texted back, saying I'd come by that afternoon, and left it at that. We drove over in the early afternoon, public lot, elevators that smell like old fries, the whole 9 yards. I had the envelope of medical stuff she'd given me in the park, just in case anyone asked who I was. The front desk lady barely glanced at it before buzzing us up. The whole place was so not what I expected. Gray walls, old linoleum, a TV in the waiting area blasting some terrible soap opera. Larry squeezed my shoulder and told me he'd wait in the hall if I wanted. I said no, I wanted him there. I didn't trust myself to be alone with her, not after everything. We got to her room. She was actually there, hooked up to an IV, wearing one of those hospital gowns that never fits right. She looked even smaller than before, so pale. And for a second, I almost felt bad. Almost. She saw me and started crying. Not the performative, ugly cry stuff from the shower. This was quieter, more desperate. She said she was so glad I came, that she thought she'd never see me again, that she had so much to say. She started right in with the apologies. The, I was sick, Otis was terrible, I didn't know how to be a mom routine. Larry stood by the door, crossing his arms, watching her like she was a wild animal that might bite. She asked for a few minutes alone, which honestly made me nervous, but I agreed. Larry said he'd be right outside. He gave me this look, like, text me if you need me. I nodded, and then it was just me and her. One last time. She started with the health stuff. She said it was cancer, for real. She was tired all the time, couldn't keep food down, the whole deal. She said she'd had nobody. No friends, no family, nobody to visit. She said her only wish was to see her grandchild, just once, to know something good came out of her life. She went on about how hard it was, being alone. She said she'd been praying, that she forgave me for everything. I guess she meant for leaving her, for not being the good daughter she wanted. Whatever. I listened. I stood there, arms crossed, just letting her talk. I didn't interrupt, didn't cry, didn't really react at all. I think that's what finally got to her, because after a while she started getting angry. Like, actually angry. She said I must be happy now, with my perfect little family, that I had everything handed to me, that I didn't appreciate how hard she had it. She started saying I owed her, that if it hadn't been for me, Otis wouldn't have stayed. She could have been happy. She could have had a life. She said she was only 18 when she had me, that she never wanted a kid, that she was too young. She blamed me for everything. Her wasted youth, her broken relationships, even her health. She said I ruined her, and that's why she couldn't love me right. I just stared at her. I couldn't even get angry at that point. I told her, flat out, I was done blaming myself for her choices. I told her I might never forgive her, but I wasn't going to let her poison my life anymore. I said I was sorry for her, but I was not sorry for leaving, and I was not sorry for keeping my child away from her. She started to cry again. She reached for my hand, but I stepped back. She said, please, just hold my hand, just let me see the baby once. I shook my head. I said, you don't get to do this. You don't get to hurt me for 20 years and then show up and demand forgiveness because you're dying. She said she didn't want to die alone. I told her, you made your choices. You chose Otis. You chose yourself. Now I'm choosing myself. She went silent, just stared at me, tears running down her face. I left the envelope of medical stuff on the table by her bed and walked out. Larry was standing right there, looking tense. I nodded, and we left. Neither of us said anything until we got outside. Back in the car, I just sat there, staring out the window, trying to decide if I felt better or worse. Larry asked if I was okay. I shrugged. He said he was proud of me, and that's when I finally let myself cry for a minute. Not for her, not anymore, but for me. For all the years I lost trying to make her love me. For every time I thought maybe this time she'd change. For every birthday I spent waiting for her to show up and apologize. The next week, everything felt weirdly normal. Until it didn't. I started getting headaches, couldn't focus, kept snapping at Larry over dumb stuff. I thought it was stress, or maybe just pregnancy brain. But then, out of nowhere, my water broke. Weeks early. Cue the absolute chaos. Larry went into full panic mode, running around the apartment looking for the hospital bag that I'd half packed and then forgotten about. I texted my mother-in-law, who said she'd meet us at the hospital. The Uber ride felt like it took forever, even though it was maybe 15 minutes. Larry kept squeezing my hand, telling me it would be okay. But I could see the worry all over his face. The hospital was packed. They checked me in, got me into a room, started monitoring everything. I was scared, NGL, but mostly just determined to get through it. I kept thinking, I'm not going to let my mother's drama ruin this for me. And then, because apparently the universe really hates me, my mother somehow found out I was in labor. I have no idea how. Maybe she called the hospital pretending to be a family member. Maybe she stalked my social or got it from some mutual acquaintance. Who knows? But suddenly, mid-contraction, a nurse pokes her head in and says, there's a woman at the front desk who says she's my mom and wants to see me. I just started laughing, like, are you kidding me? Now? Of all times? Larry absolutely lost it. He stormed out to the nurse's station, telling them under no circumstances was she to be let anywhere near our room. My mother-in-law showed up, saw the commotion, and immediately started laying into the nurses too. The nurse manager came by and apologized, said they'd take care of it. But I kept hearing her voice down the hall, loud, pleading, saying she just wanted to see her grandchild, that she was dying, that this was her last chance. Security showed up and tried to walk her out. She started screaming, yelling that I was a horrible daughter, that I was selfish, that I'd regret this forever. The nurses closed our door, and someone put a note on the chart that under no circumstances was she to be allowed back in. I could still hear her, though, all the way down the hall yelling my name. Labor went fast after that. The baby was healthy, though small, and honestly, seeing him for the first time made everything else fade out for a few minutes. Larry cried. His mom cried. I was just relieved. For once, it felt like something actually went right. We stayed in the hospital for a few days. Security checked in a few times just to make sure there weren't any more scenes. My mother tried calling, left voicemails on every phone she could find, even called Larry's mom at her house line. No idea how she got that number. She said she'd forgive us if we just let her see the baby. She said she was going to tell everyone what a terrible daughter I was. She said I'd regret this when she was gone. I didn't answer. I let Larry and his mom deal with it. I blocked every number. I made the nurses promise not to tell her anything, not even if we were there. I was done. We went home with the baby, and things started to feel almost normal. Well, as normal as you can get when you're running on 2 hours of sleep and your life feels like it's been on fire for months. I kept half expecting her to show up at the apartment again. I kept double-checking the locks, peeking out the window before leaving. A week after we got home, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just my name, written in that shaky handwriting I'd know anywhere. Inside, there was a single photo, me as a baby, in her arms. On the back, she'd written, "I loved you once. I wish I'd known how." No apology, no plea, no threats. Just that. I stared at it for a long time, then put it in a drawer. Not out of sight, but not on display either. Maybe one day I'll look at it and feel something other than this weird, tired sadness. Maybe not. Larry's been amazing, honestly. His family has stepped up in ways I never expected. His mom brings food. Freya from down the hall dropped off some baby clothes and actually apologized for her earlier comment about family. She said she didn't realize what was really going on, and I didn't have the energy to hold a grudge. I do know this. I'm not my mother. I'm not perfect, and I'm probably going to mess up a million times as a parent, but I will never be her. I'm done waiting for her to change, or for some big moment of closure that makes it all okay. Real life isn't like that. You just keep going, one day at a time. So, that's it. That's the story. If you stuck with me, thank you. If you ever wondered if you're allowed to cut out toxic family, let this be your sign. You are. You don't owe anyone forgiveness just because they share your DNA. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is walk away and lock the door behind you. And sometimes that's the bravest thing, too.